Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Career Evangelist podcast. I'm happy to have you guys join me here today, and I'm excited to introduce my guest. We have a guest, Adele SPRAGGON. Adele is an award-winning author, thought leader, international trainer, and a fearless speaker. She has been awarded the 2020 Woman of Inspiration Award, and in 2021, she was recognized as the top behavioral expert of the year. Her book, Shift, 4 Steps to Personal Empowerment, has won 3 awards and is sweeping the globe, transforming how people are setting and achieving their goals. I'm excited to have this guest with us today, and I know there is a ton to learn from her. Without keeping you guys waiting any further, let's bring in my guest, Adele. Hey, Adele, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great, Bola. Happy to be here.
Awesome. I'm happy to have you here. So, do you mind introducing yourself to my listeners so that they can know who you are, what you do, and what they can learn from you?
Sure. So I'm a behavioral change expert, and I work differently than most coaches. What I do is I teach people how to upgrade their brain. So our brain works by way of creating patterns. Once it has formed a pattern or a neural pathway, it continues to do the same actions, behaviors, beliefs over and over again. So if you're taking the same actions you know you shouldn't be doing, and yet you can't help but do them, this is why. It's because your brain has a pattern that's already formed and that is just continuously taking that action.
Okay.
So I have a way to upgrade that. I teach a specific 4-step repatterning technique, and it teaches people how to first identify those patterns and then upgrade them, removing them first, and then changing them and upgrading them second, so as to take new actions on your behalf.
Awesome. So you say you are a behavioral change expert. What does that mean, Adele?
Yes. It means that I work with people who have all sorts of issues, anything from personal development issues to professional development issues to relationship issues. And I teach them how to work with how to first address those behaviors in ways that are highly effective, and then how to change those behaviors so that they just disappear effortlessly. So that we're not constantly trying to control what we do, but instead working with alignment as our brain works in order to cause new behaviors.
Well, that's good. And you also said you help people to upgrade their brain. I like the word upgrade. I know people upgrade their homes, upgrade their cars, but I've never heard anyone upgrade their brain. So this is new to me. What do you mean by upgrading people's brain? You are not a
Yes.
surgeon, are you?
Sorry?
You are not the surgeon that's gonna, go into their brain.
No, I'm no surgeon.
Okay.
Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a tool or a technique so that you can upgrade your own brain. Okay. So I don't actually do it on your behalf, but I teach you how to work with your brain so that that happens. So, what neuroscience is now determining is how much plasticity or how much our brain is capable of adapting and changing, depending on our environment. And that happens all the time spontaneously. So every once in a while, if you are faced with a situation that you've never faced before, your brain will make a correction and it will upgrade your brain patterning. So what I do is I just teach a way to make that what happens spontaneously systematic, so that you get to be in control of when and how you upgrade your brain, and not just dependent on circumstances to upgrade it for you. So that's what I do, is I just take that is happening naturally and I just give you the tools so you can do it yourself.
Okay. In your book, Shift, right?
Yes.
What are those 4 steps?
Yeah.
Maybe they are the techniques you are talking about.
It is the technique that I'm talking
Okay.
about. So
do you want to go over those steps with us?
sure. So why don't we just use an example? So most people have something in their lives that is not working for them, right? So maybe a behavior that they adopt that they don't want to be doing. Perhaps they're procrastinating. Perhaps they're getting into conflicts with their spouse or with their partner, and they just don't know how to stop doing that. Okay. So if that's the case, what I teach is a way to first identify that. So I'm going to give you the definition of a pattern.
Okay.
We know we are running a pattern based on a physical sensation, an emotion, and a thought. When the three parts of our being come together, physical, emotional, and mental, it results in a particular action, behavior, or belief. So we're going to start not by asking ourselves, what am I doing or why am I doing it? And instead ask, what am I feeling when I do this? Okay. What's my emotion? Where do I feel that in the body? And what does my mind tell me? What one thought is running through my mind? So what I just gave you was step one of the 4-step technique. Identify the pattern first. Stop trying to figure it out as if it's happening out there in the world. Okay.
Yeah.
The second thing you're going to do is own it as a pattern. So let me explain something intriguing about the human brain, which you know, but you probably just haven't thought about it before.
Yeah.
Our brain is locked inside a skull. It's dark and it's silent in there. There's no sound in there. There's no sight in there. There's no touch. There's no smell. There is nothing in there other than neural pathways.
Right.
So what does that tell us? Well, that tells us that when I'm looking out here at the world, I believe I am looking at, say, a glass of water. Okay. But I'm not. What I'm actually aware of is a pattern in my brain that informs me this is a glass of water.
Wow.
Okay. So my brain is constantly interpreting the world around it based on what it already knows, based on its patterning. Okay. Okay. That's really important to know, because if we are going to change that pattern so that you can take a more effective action, right, such as stop snapping at your spouse when they come home at the end of the day, then we have to own it as our pattern and not as our spouse causing that, right? Not as something that they are doing, but rather something that our brain is doing. So when we own it as a pattern, we're going to just flip that switch. I created that, not the situation created that. Okay. Okay. So that's step 2. Then step 3, we're going to deconstruct or tease apart that pattern. Now that's a tricky step for me to explain just in a 30-minute podcast. So if you're interested in knowing how to upgrade your brain, I recommend you get my book. It's free on my website, so you can just get your own copy. And that'll show you exactly how to tease that apart or deconstruct the old pattern that is there in your brain. At that point, you're in a very powerful position now to create a new pattern. But until we remove that old pattern, it's really, really hard to just replace it, because that pattern will keep triggering, right? And I'm sure everybody who's tried to change a behavior that doesn't work for them knows it's really hard to change a pattern as long as that same action remains in your brain. But imagine, well, if I could just give you a magic wand and we could somehow just wave away that action, can you see how you would just be a totally different person? How your behavior would just totally change? Okay, that's the power of learning how to work with your brain. So step 1, identify. Step 2, own. Step 3, deconstruct. Step 4, now you can upgrade the brain or create a new pattern.
I like that. And thank you for sharing that with us, Adele. Now, we all know that each and every decision that we make, everything comes from our brain. How can we ensure that we use our brain power to align to us towards the right decisions that we need to make in our lives? And I'll give you an example. Let's say I know that I'm not supposed to just be eating pizza or ice cream all day long, right?
Yeah.
How can I control my brain? How can I? Now you taught us, or you shared with us, how to identify, how to hone, how to deconstruct, and now upgrade. How can I upgrade my brain so that it's making the right decisions on my behalf?
Yes, great question. So you don't actually make your decisions. Your brain is making decisions behind your back. Okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. That's the
Yeah.
first thing to know, because that takes some of the pressure off. It's like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Why do I keep eating pizza? Nothing's wrong with you. You have a pattern in your brain that eats pizza. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
that's
all
right.
that's happening. Okay. Well, so So the first thing to know is that you actually are not taking that action. So I'm going to say something that neuroscience has now determined. And this is a relatively new finding. I mean, they knew it in like the 80s, but it's not really caught on until now. And that is that the decision you are about to make is already being predetermined by the subconscious regions of your brain before you know you're going to make that decision.
Mhm.
Now, let's think about this for a minute, because you're reaching for that pizza, but you're already the impetus to reach for the pizza. You're already in motion before you know you want pizza. So
Yeah.
how are you going to stop reaching for the pizza when you're already in motion, when the train's already left the station, I might just, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we have to do is not wait until we're reaching for the pizza in order to control what we're doing. What we
Mhm.
have to do is change the brain's patterning first.
Mhm.
At that point, you're just not interested in pizza. In fact, you don't even think about pizza. It's effortless. So, if I can use an example from my life, I was a very heavy drinker. I drank wine every single night, and I could not stop myself from opening that bottle come 5 o'clock. It was like 9 o'clock, I was at the bottle. And no matter how much I tried to stop and change that motion,
Yeah.
I couldn't. And then I would beat myself up afterwards going, what's wrong with me? Okay. So
Right.
through repatterning my brain, I just naturally and effortlessly just stepped away from that action. I don't have to think about it. And I'm not hanging on by the fingernails like an addict would be, right? I
Right.
go, oh my gosh, I can't have wine. No, it can be in my space. It can be all around me. Doesn't bother me anymore because I no longer have a pattern to drink wine. Same with the pizza. When you no longer have a pattern to eat pizza, yeah, it can come and go. It doesn't bother you.
Well, that's good. I have something to, now thinking about the power of the brain. Let me give you a scenario here. Two people, they may confront a similar difficult situation.
Yep.
One person will quit, just, hey, this ain't for me. They'll just back down in the face of this challenging situation. Another person will step up,
Yep.
lean in, keep moving forward. They both have brains, but
Yep.
one person's brain is saying, run and fly, take flight, right? The
Yep.
other person's brain is telling that this fellow, confront, go forward. So, what are some secrets that people may not know in terms of how to bounce back when we confront challenges?
Mm-hmm.
You can share
So
with us. Yeah.
again, great question. I mean, the first thing to look at is why these two people are making totally different decisions, why these two people are acting so opposed to each other, right? If we both have the same brain, why is it you leap forward and I run back? Right? It's okay. So, how does that happen? Well, the human brain is different from other animals. We're not born with instincts, we're born with the capacity to adapt. That's the power of the human brain. And so, how that works is that every situation that you faced as a child, your brain took the action that you took in that moment and it stored it away for future use.
Right.
So, at a very young age, if you retreated, then that pattern got in your brain, and that pattern continues to have you retreat. If you moved forward, that pattern got stored in your brain, and that pattern has you moving forward. So, it's not good or bad what you're doing. It's just how did your brain get patterned as a child that led up to the actions that you're taking today? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the first thing to know. Then once you know that, it's like, oh, okay, I want to move forward, but I'm not. I'm instead retreating. Great. Then let's remove the pattern that has you retreat. At this point, your brain's in a position to create a brand new pattern.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
Now we can create a pattern that has you move forward rather than retreating. But until you remove the pattern that retreats, that pattern will just continue to fire. So you didn't choose your patterns. Nobody is saying that as a child, you consciously knew what your brain was doing and therefore was able to determine what patterns got created. All of those got created. That's the fact. Now the question is, okay, through self-reflection, you can ask yourself, okay, what am I doing? Not why am I doing it, but just what am I doing? And
Mm.
then what's the pattern under that and how do I remove that?
Oh,
I
that's
think
great.
I forgot a piece of your question, Bola. So
Yeah.
tell me if I
Uh,
answer.
no, I think you did.
Okay,
And I think, to break that pattern, we may need to go through those 4 steps.
that's
Identify
right.
the pattern, own the pattern, deconstruct, and of
Yeah,
course, the fourth one, you said you need to now upgrade. So that is
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Thank you.
But I just want to add one thing too. We live very much in a world of blame and shame because we are not taught this, right? So the person who's retreating is taught to beat themselves up, blame themselves. They're judged for what they're doing, all of that stuff, right? The person who's moving forward, they're praised for it. It's like that's good what you're doing. That's a good thing. Okay, all of that blame and shame, it doesn't actually support any of us, really. It just keeps all of us trapped inside patterns that don't work.
Okay.
So we need to really look today at what neuroscience is saying about our brain and how our brain works and functions so that we can work in alignment with it. And when we are able to work in alignment with it, then all of that inner critic goes away, all of that outer critic goes away, right? The blaming of other people. And we just have an effective way to change what we're doing.
Okay, that's good. So in the world that we live today, obviously there are many, many millions of unhappy people.
Yes.
And you've said that happiness is our birthright.
Yes.
I like that. So why is it that some people are not happy
Yep.
while maybe some are happy? Is this also about how we use our brain power?
Absolutely. So some people's brain patterns are the patterns that your brain holds today. Some people's drive happiness, some people's drive unhappiness. But I want to give a much more broader understanding of why you might be feeling unhappy. When we run a pattern from our past that is misaligned with the situation that you're in today, the brain tries to tell you by sending messages, and the messages that it sends are emotional ones. It makes you feel uncomfortable in some way, sadness, shame, guilt, anger, upset, as a messenger that says, hey, knock, knock, you're running a misaligned pattern. Let's upgrade the pattern. If your brain could speak,
Right.
okay, it would say, let's upgrade this pattern rather than you continuing to keep taking the wrong action. That's what's happening. And that's the root of all unhappiness. Once your brain is aligned perfectly, the pattern is aligned with the situation, that unhappiness melts away. Okay, that guilt melts away, that shame melts away, because you're taking effective actions, effective behaviors that take care of you and take care of everybody around you. And at the same time, that alignment with the current moment has you feeling happy. And that's why I say happiness is your birthright. Because once you're aligned with your situation, you're just naturally joyous. There is a joy that is under all of our emotional content. So it doesn't mean that you won't feel grief. Please don't misunderstand. It doesn't mean that you won't feel unhappiness. That's not true. If sadness is optimal for the situation, you will feel it. At the same time, in the undercurrent of the brain, there is always joy when you're aligned perfectly with what's going on.
So good alignment with the brain. That's what you are talking about.
Yes.
That's important. Now, Adele, as we are rounding up this interview, there are people out there, they may want to work with you. I know you are a behavior change coach. How do you work with your clients? Is it a one-on-one kind of conversation or coaching that you have with them? Do they need to go to your website, or how can they connect with you so that you can start helping them? Because obviously, if we can align our brain in the right way, I think more people will have more fulfillment in their life and they be able to reach their full potential. And that's important to me. So how can we find you? And
Yeah,
how do
great.
you work with your clients?
Yeah, so I work in a number of different ways, and it just depends on the client and their preference. I do one-on-one, I do group coaching as well, and I also have a self-study program. All of that is available on my website. So adelspraggon.com is where you would go. But if you want a free copy of my book, which gives you an introduction to what I do and also gives you the technique, you can get it free, like I said, on my website. So where to go to get that is www.shift, SHIFT 4, that's the number 4, steps with an S.com. So shift4steps.com. That'll give you a free introductory video and a free copy of my book if you're interested in knowing more. If you want to work with me, then reach out. That you can book a free call from my website, a free introductory call, and you can also gain some great information on there as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. And thank you very much for your gift. So we go to www.shift4steps.com to get a copy of your book. And if we are interested in working with you, that's adelspraggon.com. So I'm going to leave all the links in my show notes so that people can connect with you. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you.
So one more thing. I always like my audience to leave like maybe a message for my listeners. Maybe there is something that we've not touched on, or maybe something that you can say to them to motivate them that, hey guys, your brain is powerful. If you learn how to use your brain, you will get the outcome that you desire. So go ahead, Adele, do that.
Yes, absolutely. And what we need to know today in this very conflicted world of ours that we're going through at the moment is that the reason that we're reaching this level of conflict is because everything that we've been taught about the brain is no longer working. Our fast-paced world, the rate of change today is moving too quickly for the patterns that we created in our past to keep up with it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the source of our conflict. If we can upgrade our brain, all of those conflicts disappear. They melt from our own lives, our own personal lives. And as you keep upgrading your brain, using the tool, you'll see the conflicts melt around you in your families and things like that. So your brain is extremely powerful and you are hugely influential, more so than most people ever realize. When we can work with our brain in the way it's designed, we create massive change, and massive change is needed today.
Thank you very much, Adele. It's been awesome having this conversation with you. I enjoyed it, and I'm sure my audience, they are going to enjoy it as well. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for having me. Happy to help.